The transport ship Stellar Harmony moved slowly toward the blue and green planet hanging in space. Inside the luxury passenger area, 6 alien students pressed their faces against the viewing windows. They had traveled across the galaxy to reach this place called Earth. Zefka sparkled like a living crystal as light passed through his transparent body. He came from Veltar, a world of floating gas clouds where his people lived in peace. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. Look how small it is. Hard to believe such a tiny world could be dangerous. Next to him, Moraline's blue skin glistened with moisture. She breathed through gills on her neck and came from Nerida, a world of endless calm oceans. Her webbed fingers traced patterns on the window glass. The water coverage is impressive, but I read that their oceans have deadly storms and monsters. Kex clicked his mandibles together nervously. The insect-like being had 4 arms and compound eyes that showed hundreds of tiny images. His home world of Chitara was perfectly organized by the hive mind. Everyone knew their place and followed the plan. The chaos readings from this planet are off all charts. How do they function without proper coordination? The other 3 students nodded in agreement. They had spent months studying Earth through safe academic reports. The planet was classified as a Deathworld, but the humans living there seemed harmless enough. Their entertainment broadcasts showed them laughing and playing. Their news reports talked about helping each other. How dangerous could they really be? Dr. Elena Rodriguez floated into the passenger area. The human woman moved with easy grace in the zero gravity. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail and she wore a standard university jumpsuit. She was their guide and teacher for this exchange program. "Are you excited to see Earth?" she asked with a warm smile. The aliens exchanged glances. Excited was not the right word. Curious, maybe. Worried, definitely. "Dr. Rodriguez," Zefka chimed softly. "The safety protocols for this visit are quite extensive. Are humans really as dangerous as the warnings suggest?" Elena laughed, a sound that made several aliens jump. Human laughter was loud and sudden compared to their quiet communication methods. "Dangerous? We're probably the least dangerous thing you'll encounter on Earth. It's everything else you need to worry about." Before the aliens could ask what she meant, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "Attention passengers, we are beginning our approach to Earth Station 1. Please prepare for standard gravity transition. Human guests, please assist our galactic visitors with gravity adjustment procedures." Moraline felt her stomach drop as the ship's artificial gravity slowly increased to match Earth normal. Around her, the other aliens began to struggle. Zefka's crystalline body started to compress under the weight. Stress fractures appeared along his edges. Kex's delicate wings folded, and his 4 legs shook as they tried to support his body weight. "This is normal Earth gravity?" gasped one of the other students. Elena moved quickly to help Zefka, pulling out a small device that created a localized gravity field around him. "I'm sorry, I should have warned you. We've gotten so used to accommodating other species that I forgot how harsh our standard conditions can be." As the ship docked with the space station, the aliens heard new sounds through the walls. Loud voices, heavy footsteps, and what sounded like controlled explosions. Elena explained these were normal docking procedures, but to the aliens it sounded like a battle zone. The airlock opened with a hiss that made everyone except Elena jump. Captain Jake Morrison stepped through, and the aliens immediately understood why humans were considered dangerous. He was tall and broad, with scars on his hands and face. His movements were controlled but suggested he could explode into violence at any moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough and commanding. "Welcome to Earth Station 1. I'm Captain Morrison, head of security. Dr. Rodriguez, we've had some issues with the kids in Recreation Area C. Might want to keep your guests away from there for now." "What kind of issues?" Elena asked. "Nothing serious. Just some of the 10-year-olds playing tag. They accidentally broke through the safety barriers again. Maintenance is fixing the damage now." The aliens stared at each other in horror. Children had caused structural damage while playing a game. What kind of monsters were these humans raising? As they moved through the station corridors, the aliens saw their first human children. A group of young ones ran past them, laughing and chasing each other. They moved with speed and coordination that would impress adult athletes on most worlds. One child, who could not have been more than 8 years old, easily leaped over a barrier that reached the aliens' waists. "My people don't develop that kind of physical ability until we reach full maturity," whispered Kex in amazement. "Those are just normal kids," Elena said casually. "Wait until you see our athletes." Professor Amy Collins met them at the university. Transfer point. She was older than Elena, with gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, but even she moved with the same casual strength that seemed to mark all humans. "Welcome to your new home away from home," she said cheerfully. "I know the adjustment period can be challenging, but we've prepared special accommodations for each of your species' needs." As they toured the facilities, the aliens began to notice small details that painted a disturbing picture. All the furniture was built to withstand tremendous force. The walls showed subtle reinforcement patterns. Emergency procedures were posted, everywhere covering situations that ranged from fire to radiation exposure to atmospheric breach. "How often do these emergencies happen?" asked Moralyn nervously. Amy smiled. "Oh, not very often. We only have major incidents a few times per year. The minor ones happen weekly, but those are usually just equipment failures or weather events." The aliens exchanged horrified looks. Multiple emergencies per year were considered normal? What kind of death trap had they volunteered to visit? The tour ended at the observation deck where they could look down at Earth itself. The planet was beautiful, with swirling white clouds and brilliant blue oceans. But now the aliens saw it differently. Those clouds were massive storm systems that could destroy cities. Those oceans hid creatures that could swallow spaceships. The peaceful-looking continents were covered with active volcanoes, earthquake zones, and extreme weather patterns. "It's magnificent," Elena said softly, looking down at her home world. "And yes, it's trying to kill us every single day. But that's what makes it home." As the aliens settled into their quarters that night, they began to understand that their academic preparation had been completely inadequate. They had come to study an interesting anomaly in galactic civilization. Instead, they were about to discover why humans were the most terrifying species in known space. Not because they were evil, but because they were survivors of a world that had spent millions of years trying to kill them, and had only succeeded in making them stronger. The next morning, the alien students gathered in classroom 7B for their first official lesson. Professor Amy Collins stood at the front of the room with a cheerful smile and a cup of steaming coffee. The aliens watched nervously as she sipped the dark liquid. "Good morning, everyone. Today we begin with Introduction to Terran Biology. This is usually a basic course for our human students, but I think you'll find it quite educational." Zefka's crystalline body flickered with worry. "Professor Collins, what exactly is that substance you're consuming?" Amy looked down at her coffee cup. "Oh, just coffee. It's a mild stimulant we drink to help us wake up in the morning. Would anyone like to try some?" All 6 aliens backed away from her offer. Kex's compound eyes showed hundreds of tiny images of terror. "You willingly consume stimulant drugs for recreation? Well, I suppose when you put it that way it sounds bad," Amy laughed. "But it's really quite harmless to us. Now let's begin our lesson." She pressed a button, and the wall screen showed a basic diagram of human anatomy. The aliens leaned forward, expecting to see something familiar. Instead, they saw their first glimpse into the horror of human biology. "The average human body contains approximately 37 trillion cells," Amy began casually. "We maintain a core temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which I believe would be lethal to most of your species." Moralyn raised a webbed hand. "Excuse me, but did you say the human body runs at nearly 100 degrees? That's approaching the boiling point of water on many worlds." "That's correct. We're essentially walking furnaces. Our bodies burn fuel constantly to maintain this temperature. We consume roughly 2,000 calories per day just to stay alive." The alien students frantically took notes. This was not what their research had indicated. Humans were supposed to be soft, weak creatures who had somehow stumbled into space travel. Amy continued the lesson. "Now, let's talk about the human immune system. We carry approximately 100 trillion microorganisms in and on our bodies at all times. Zefka made a sound like breaking glass. You carry 100 trillion parasites? Not parasites, Amy corrected. Symbiotic organisms. We call them our microbiome. They help us digest food, fight disease, and maintain our health. Without them, we would die. The aliens stared in disbelief. Humans walked around carrying more microorganisms than there were stars in some galaxies. On most worlds, such contamination would require immediate quarantine and sterilization. Moving on, Amy said, apparently unaware of the psychological damage she was causing. Let's discuss human physical capabilities. The average human can survive in temperatures ranging from -40 degrees to over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Kex clicked his mandibles rapidly. That's a temperature range of 160 degrees. Most species can only tolerate a range of 20 degrees. Humans are quite adaptable, Amy agreed. We can also survive at altitudes up to 18,000 feet above sea level, dive to depths of 100 feet underwater while holding our breath, and run continuously for hours without stopping. Lien felt faint. Her own species considered swimming for 2 hours to be an extraordinary athletic achievement. How long can humans run? Well, the current marathon world record is just over 2 hours for 26.2 miles. But we have ultra-marathon runners who can run for 24 hours straight, covering over 100 miles. The classroom fell silent except for the sound of Zefka's stress fractures spreading across his crystalline surface. Amy brought up a new slide showing human recreational activities. Now, humans don't just use these abilities for survival. We also enjoy what we call extreme sports. The first image showed a human jumping out of an aircraft with only a fabric parachute for protection. The second showed humans climbing vertical cliff faces using only their hands and feet. The third showed humans diving into deep ocean waters surrounded by predatory fish. These activities are considered fun? Asked one of the other alien students in a voice barely above a whisper. Very fun, Amy confirmed. Millions of humans participate in extreme sports every year. We have competitions to see who can perform the most dangerous activities with the greatest skill. Morlin tried to process this information. You deliberately put yourselves in mortal danger for entertainment? I suppose that's one way to look at it. We prefer to think of it as testing our limits and overcoming challenges. The lesson continued with examples of human endurance that shattered every assumption the aliens had made. Humans who climbed mountains in freezing temperatures. Humans who crossed deserts in scorching heat. Humans who swam across entire channels of ocean water. But surely, Zefka chimed desperately, these are exceptional individuals. You're elite. Athletes and soldiers? Amy shook her head. These are ordinary people. Every human community has individuals who participate in these activities. We actually encourage our children to try different sports and physical challenges. She showed videos of human children competing in swimming, running, climbing, and martial arts. The aliens watched in growing horror as youngsters performed feats that would kill adult members of most species. This brings us to human childhood development, Amy continued. Human children are quite remarkable. They begin walking at approximately 1 year of age and can run, jump, and climb by age 3. The aliens remembered the children they had seen in the space station. Now those terrifying displays of athletic ability made more sense. Human play behavior is also quite unique, Amy went on. Children engage in games that simulate hunting, fighting, and survival scenarios. Tag, for example, is essentially predator-prey training. Kex's forearms trembled. You train your children to be predators? Not intentionally. It just seems to be natural behavior. Hide and seek teaches stealth and tracking. Playground equipment develops strength and coordination. Sports teach strategy and teamwork. The final blow came when Amy discussed human problem-solving abilities. When faced with dangerous situations, humans tend to become more focused and creative. We call this thinking under pressure. Some of our greatest innovations have come from life-threatening emergencies. Suddenly, the classroom fire alarm began blaring. The aliens panicked, but Amy remained completely calm. This is just our weekly fire drill, she announced over the noise. Please follow standard evacuation. Procedures. The aliens watched in amazement as human students calmly filed out of the building. No screaming, no panic, no desperate rush for the exits. They moved with practiced efficiency, helping each other and checking to make sure everyone was safe. Outside the building, the aliens huddled together while humans chatted casually about weekend plans. A potential deadly emergency was being treated as a minor inconvenience. "How often do you practice for disasters?" Moralyn asked Elena, who had joined them outside. "Fire drills happen weekly. We also have earthquake drills, tornado drills, lockdown drills, and severe weather procedures. Most humans learn these as children and practice them throughout their lives." The alien students finally understood something that chilled them to their cores. Humans didn't just live on a dangerous world. They had been shaped by constant exposure to life-threatening situations. What other species would consider apocalyptic disasters, humans treated as routine maintenance issues. As they returned to the classroom, Zefka whispered to his companions, "We came here thinking we were studying, an interesting anomaly, but I think we've discovered something much more terrifying." The other aliens nodded in agreement. They were beginning to realize that humans weren't the harmless curiosities they had expected. They were survivors of a world that had spent millions of years trying to kill them, and every aspect of their biology and culture reflected that deadly education. The coastal research facility stood on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. Dr. Ben Harper had invited the alien students to spend a week studying marine biology with his team. Lisa Stone, the head marine biologist, greeted them at the entrance with her usual bright smile. "Welcome to the Oceanic Research Center," she said cheerfully. "We're excited to show you some of Earth's most fascinating creatures." The aliens looked out at the vast ocean with mixed feelings. The water stretched to the horizon, dark blue and constantly moving. Waves crashed against the rocks below with tremendous force, sending spray high into the air. "The ocean seems quite violent," observed Moralyn. Despite being from an aquatic world herself, the wave action is much more aggressive than our seas. Lisa laughed. "This is actually pretty calm today. You should see it during storm season." As if summoned by her words, Dr. Harper approached with a concerned expression on his face. "Lisa, we just got the weather update. Hurricane Patricia is strengthening rapidly. Category 4, maybe 5. It'll be here in 2 days." The alien students looked at each other in alarm. A hurricane was one of Earth's legendary weather disasters. Surely the humans would evacuate immediately. "Well," Lisa said thoughtfully, "I guess we'd better secure the equipment and prep the storm shutters. Should we cancel the dolphin observation scheduled for tomorrow?" "Probably wise," Ben agreed. "The seas will be too rough by then." Zefka's crystalline body flickered with panic. "Excuse me, but shouldn't we be leaving? Evacuating to a safer location?" Ben looked puzzled. "Leave? Why would we leave? This facility was built to withstand Category 5 hurricanes. We'll be fine." "You're going to stay here while a planet-killing storm approaches?" Kex clicked his mandibles in disbelief. "Planet-killing?" Lisa repeated with amusement. "It's just a hurricane. We get several every year along this coast. The building is rated for winds up to 200 miles per hour." The aliens watched in growing horror as the humans began their storm preparations. Rather than fleeing in terror, they worked with calm efficiency. Storm shutters were installed over windows. Equipment was moved to higher floors. Emergency supplies were checked and restocked. Local residents from the nearby town of Sea Haven began arriving at the facility, which apparently served as a hurricane shelter for the community. They brought camping gear, food supplies, and a casual attitude that shocked the aliens. "Hey, Dr. Harper," called out a man carrying a cooler. "Mind if we set up in the main lab again? My house is right on the beach." "No problem, Pete. Same spots as last year." Last year, the aliens realized these humans had done this before. Multiple times. By evening, the facility was filled with dozens of humans preparing for what they called a hurricane party. Children played games in the corridors while adults cooked communal meals and shared stories of previous storms. "I don't understand," Moralyn said to Elena, who had arrived to help with evacuation procedures for the aliens. "These people seem happy about the approaching disaster." "Well, hurricanes are dangerous, but they're also part of life here. Elena explained. These folks have been through dozens of storms. They know how to prepare and stay safe. Outside, the wind was already picking up. Palm trees bent at impossible angles. Rain began to fall in sheets that would have knocked most aliens off their feet. The humans barely seemed to notice. That night, Hurricane Patricia made landfall. The aliens huddled in the interior rooms while the storm raged outside. The wind howled like a living thing, reaching speeds that would tear apart most alien structures. Rain hammered against the reinforced walls with the force of liquid bullets. The building shook and groaned under the assault, but the humans remained remarkably calm. Some played cards by emergency lighting. Others told stories or shared food. Children slept peacefully in makeshift beds, while the world outside tried to destroy everything in its path. The wind speed is measuring 180 miles per hour, Dr. Harper announced during one of his regular updates. We're getting some minor structural stress on the east wall, but everything's holding fine. Minor structural stress. The aliens felt like they were inside a container being shaken by an angry god. Around midnight, disaster struck. A piece of flying debris crashed through one of the storm shutters, and fragments of metal and glass showered the room where Kex had been resting. The insectoid alien's compound eyes were damaged, and blue fluid leaked from several cuts on his carapace. The humans reacted instantly. Dr. Harper appeared with a medical kit that seemed impossibly well stocked for a research facility. Working, by flashlight, he began treating Kex's injuries with steady hands despite the building continuing to shake around them. Hold still, he said calmly. The eye damage looks worse than it is. We can fix this. Using equipment that the aliens would have considered primitive, Dr. Harper performed delicate surgery on Kex's eyes. His hands never trembled even as the hurricane continued to rage outside. Lisa assisted, holding instruments steady while rain pounded the roof like artillery fire. How can you work so calmly in these conditions? Zefka asked in amazement. You adapt, Dr. Harper replied simply. When you live on the coast, you learn to handle medical emergencies during storms. Help doesn't always arrive quickly in weather like this. The eye of the hurricane passed over them around dawn. Suddenly the wind stopped and the rain ceased. An eerie calm settled over the facility. The aliens thought the storm was over, but the humans knew better. This is just the eye, Lisa explained. We have maybe an hour of calm, then the backside of the storm hits. They used the brief respite to check for damage and make repairs. The aliens watched in disbelief as humans ventured outside to secure loose debris and reinforce weak points. They worked quickly and efficiently, knowing exactly what needed to be done. 8-year-old Katie Miller, whose family was sheltering at the facility, found an injured seabird that had been blown inland by the storm. She calmly bandaged its wing using techniques that would impress adult medics on most worlds. My dad taught me first aid when I was 5, she explained to the amazed aliens. Everyone here knows basic medical stuff. You never know when you might need it during a storm. The backside of the hurricane was even worse than the first half. But by then, the aliens had begun to understand something profound about humans. This wasn't just survival. It was adaptation to an environment that regularly produced planet-scale disasters. When the storm finally passed, the humans emerged to survey the damage. Trees were down, buildings were damaged, and debris covered everything. But the facility had survived, and more importantly, so had everyone inside it. Category 4, announced Dr. Harper, checking his weather instruments. Pretty standard for this time of year. Standard. A storm that could destroy entire alien civilizations was considered standard by these humans. As cleanup began, the aliens watched humans work together to restore their community. Children helped clear debris. Elderly residents directed repair efforts. Everyone contributed according to their abilities, following procedures they had clearly practiced many times before. This happens every year? Asked Maura Lynn, still stunned by what she had witnessed. Hurricane season runs from June through November, Lisa confirmed. We usually get hit by at least 2 or 3 storms each year. Some years it's worse. The aliens finally understood why humans seemed so unperturbed by danger. They had been conditioned from birth to expect their environment to try to kill them regularly. What other species would consider apocalyptic disasters, humans treated as seasonal weather patterns. They weren't just survivors of a death world. They were a species that had learned to live normally while their planet regularly attempted to destroy them, and somehow impossibly they had made it work. The medical emergency struck without warning. Zefka's life support systems began failing as the group traveled through the Rocky Mountains. The combination of high altitude and storm damage to his equipment created a crisis that threatened his life. Their transport vehicle broke down near the small town of Cedar Falls, population 847. Dr. Elena Rodriguez immediately called for emergency assistance, but the nearest hospital was 3 hours away through mountain roads damaged by recent storms. "We need to get him help now," Elena said urgently, looking at Zefka's flickering crystalline body. "His system can't handle this altitude without proper support." The local doctor, Sam Mitchell, arrived within minutes of their distress call. He was a middle-aged man with weathered hands and calm eyes that had seen many emergencies. Behind him came Kate Williams, the local park ranger, carrying a large equipment bag. "What do we have?" Dr. Mitchell asked, kneeling beside Zefka without hesitation. "Crystalline life form, silicon-based, requires specific atmospheric pressure and mineral supplements," Elena explained quickly. "His life support unit was damaged in the hurricane." The other aliens watched in amazement as Dr. Mitchell and Kate Williams examined the broken alien technology. They had never seen equipment like this before, but they approached the problem with the same calm focus they would use for any medical emergency. Atmospheric pressure regulation, mineral supplementation, and electromagnetic field generation, Kate observed, studying the damaged unit. "Sam, remember when we rigged that emergency oxygen concentrator for the climbing accident last winter?" "Same principles, different application," Dr. Mitchell agreed. "Kate, can you get the automotive oxygen system from Joe's garage? I'll need the mineral supplements from the veterinary clinic." Within an hour, the two humans had constructed a working life support system using car parts, veterinary medicines, and camping equipment. The improvised device not only worked but proved more reliable than the original alien technology. "How did you know how to build this?" Moralyn asked in wonder. Dr. Mitchell shrugged. "When you live in a small mountain town, you learn to fix things with whatever you have available. Help doesn't always arrive quickly up here." The aliens were invited to stay in Cedar Falls while Zefka recovered. The town was preparing for their annual Survival Days festival, which the locals described as a fun community event. The aliens soon discovered it was actually a demonstration of human capabilities that would qualify as military training on most worlds. The festival began with children as young as 6 years old competing in fire-starting contests. Using only basic materials like flint and steel, these youngsters could create flames in conditions that would challenge adult survival experts from other species. "Fire is one of the first things we teach our kids," explained Mary Johnson, a local teacher. "Every child in Cedar Falls knows how to start a fire, find water, build shelter, and signal for help." The aliens watched 10-year-old Danny Carter navigate through dense forest using only a compass and map. He moved with confidence through terrain that would have killed most galactic citizens, identifying edible plants and avoiding natural hazards. "My dad started teaching me when I was 5, Danny explained proudly. "Everyone here knows this stuff. What if you get lost in the mountains?" The festival's main events revealed even more disturbing human capabilities. Adults competed in endurance, challenges that lasted for hours. They carried heavy packs across rough terrain, climbed rock faces using only their hands and feet, and survived overnight in the wilderness with minimal equipment. "This is considered recreational activity?" Kex asked, his repaired compound eyes showing hundreds of images of humans performing impossible feats. "Sure," replied Tom Bradley, a local park guide. "We do this kind of thing every weekend. The mountains are beautiful, but they can kill you if you're not prepared." The casual relationship humans had with deadly force became apparent when a black bear wandered into the town center during the festival. The aliens expected immediate evacuation and military response. Instead, Park Ranger Kate Williams simply walked up to the 400-pound predator with a calm confidence that defied all logic. "Hey there, big guy," she said softly, approaching the bear with steady movements. "You're not supposed to be here." Using nothing but her voice and body language, Kate guided the massive creature away from the crowd and back toward the forest. The bear, which could have easily killed her with a single swipe of its claws, followed her directions like a trained pet. That animal could have destroyed your entire town, Zefka chimed in amazement. Bears are usually pretty reasonable, Kate replied. You just have to know how to talk to them. This one was probably just looking for food. The aliens realized that humans didn't just survive dangerous wildlife. They had learned to communicate with and manage creatures that would be considered apex predators on most worlds. The festival's children's games provided another shock. What the locals called Capture the Flag was essentially small unit military tactics training. Teams of children moved through difficult terrain, using camouflage, stealth, and coordination that would impress professional soldiers. 8-year-old Sarah Davis demonstrated tracking skills by following footprints that were nearly invisible to alien eyes. You look for broken twigs, disturbed leaves, and pressure marks in the soil, she explained patiently to the amazed visitors. The hide-and-seek tournament revealed children who could become virtually invisible in natural environments. They used shadows, terrain features, and natural materials to create camouflage that fooled even advanced alien sensors. How do human children develop these capabilities? Moralyn asked Dr. Mitchell. They grow up here, he answered simply. The mountains teach you what you need to know or they kill you. Our kids learn early. The most disturbing revelation came during the festival's emergency response demonstration. A simulated hiking accident required immediate medical attention and mountain rescue. The aliens watched ordinary townspeople organize a complex rescue operation with military precision. 12-year-old Alex Carter played the injured hiker. When rescuers reached him, he calmly provided information about his condition and assisted with his own treatment. His composure under simulated life-threatening circumstances was more professional than most adult emergency responders on other worlds. Kids here start learning first aid as soon as they can walk, explained his father, Mike Carter. You never know when someone might need help in the mountains. The rescue team included a grandmother who could rappel down cliff faces, a teenager who performed advanced first aid, and a local mechanic who built improvised rescue equipment from spare parts. Every person had multiple skills that would be considered superhuman by galactic standards. That evening, as the festival concluded with a community barbecue, the aliens sat apart from the humans, trying to process what they had witnessed. They're not just survivors, Kex clicked quietly. They're apex predators who have learned to work together. Every human child in this town could survive situations that would kill adult members of our species, added Moralyn. Zefka flickered thoughtfully, and they consider this normal childhood development. The aliens began to understand that humans weren't remarkable, despite coming from a death world. They were remarkable because their death world had shaped every aspect of their development. What they had witnessed wasn't exceptional human behavior. It was ordinary small-town life on Earth. As they prepared to leave Cedar Falls, the townspeople gathered to wish them well. Children who could track, hunt, and survive in conditions that would kill most aliens waved goodbye with innocent smiles. Adults who could perform emergency surgery, manage dangerous wildlife, and build life-saving equipment from spare parts offered friendly handshakes. Thanks for visiting, called out Danny Carter. Come back any time. The aliens realized with growing terror that these weren't Earth's elite soldiers or survival experts. These were just ordinary humans living ordinary lives in an ordinary human community. If this was what passed for normal on Earth, what were their actual warriors and specialists capable of? As their repaired transport carried them away from Cedar Falls, the alien students finally understood the true scope of what they were dealing with. Humans weren't just another species that had achieved spaceflight. They were apex predators from a death world who had learned to cooperate, improvise, and adapt to any situation. They weren't studying an interesting anomaly in galactic civilization. They were observing the most dangerous species the universe had ever produced. For their final week on Earth, Dr. Elena Rodriguez planned a farewell trip to Yellowstone National Park. She hoped the natural beauty would give the alien students positive memories to take home. Instead, they discovered a landscape that existed in constant danger of complete destruction. Tom Bradley, their park guide, met them at the entrance with his usual cheerful demeanor. He was a tall man with sun-weathered skin and the calm confidence that marked all humans the aliens had encountered. "Welcome to Yellowstone," he said warmly. "You're in for a real treat. We've got geysers, hot springs, wildlife, and some of the most beautiful scenery on Earth." The aliens looked around nervously. Steam rose from the ground in dozens of places. The air smelled of sulfur and other chemicals that would be toxic on most worlds. In the distance, they could see pools of boiling water and jets of superheated steam shooting into the air. "This area seems geologically unstable," observed Zefka, his crystalline body reflecting the strange colored lights from the mineral deposits. "Oh, it is," Tom agreed casually. "The whole park sits on top of a supervolcano. The Yellowstone caldera is one of the largest active volcanic systems in the world." The aliens stopped walking. "Active volcano?" Lien asked in a voice barely above a whisper. "Supervolcano, actually. Much bigger than a regular volcano. When it erupts, it'll probably affect the entire planet. But don't worry, that only happens every 600,000 years or so. We're probably due for another eruption sometime in the next few 100,000 years." The aliens stared at him in horror. Humans had built a tourist destination on top of a potential planet killer, and they talked about it like a minor inconvenience. "You knew this was here and you still built facilities?" Kex clicked his mandibles rapidly. "Sure, it's beautiful here, and the volcanic activity creates amazing natural features. Come on, let me show you, Old Faithful." They walked toward the famous geyser, passing pools of water that bubbled and steamed at temperatures that would cook most alien flesh instantly. Human children ran alongside the paths playing games and laughing while their parents took pictures of the deadly landscape. "The water temperature in these hot springs reaches 200 degrees Fahrenheit, Tom explained. "Hot enough to kill you in seconds. We've got safety barriers, but people still fall in occasionally." "And you bring children here?" Lien asked in disbelief. "Kids love it. Great educational opportunity. They learn about geology, chemistry, and the importance of following safety rules." As if summoned by his words, a group of young humans ran past them, led by a woman who was obviously their teacher. The children chattered excitedly about thermal features and volcanic activity, showing more enthusiasm for planetary-scale destruction than most species would display for entertainment. Old Faithful erupted right on schedule, shooting a column of boiling water 180 feet into the air. The human tourists applauded and took photographs. The aliens watched in stunned silence as these creatures celebrated a demonstration of the forces that could annihilate their entire civilization. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Tom said proudly. "She erupts about every 90 minutes. Very reliable." They spent the day touring the park's thermal features. Every site revealed new horrors disguised as natural beauty. Mud pots that bubbled with acidic clay, fumaroles that vented poisonous gases, hot springs with colors that indicated deadly mineral concentrations. "The park has over 10,000 thermal features," Tom explained. "Each one is unique. The underground plumbing system is incredibly complex." "Underground plumbing system?" Zefka chimed nervously. "The whole area is connected by underground chambers filled with superheated water and steam. Think of it as the planet's pressure relief system. All this thermal activity helps prevent a catastrophic eruption." The aliens realized that humans didn't just live on top of a potential world-ending disaster. They had turned it into a recreational area and convinced themselves that the daily signs of impending doom were actually helping to prevent catastrophe. On their second day, a minor earthquake struck while they were visiting the Grand Prismatic Spring. The ground shook for 30 seconds, causing several small rockslides and temporary changes in some of the thermal features. The aliens panicked, expecting immediate evacuation procedures. Instead, they watched human families continue their sightseeing, as if nothing had happened. "Just a little tremor," Tom said calmly, checking his radio for any updates. "We get several hundred small earthquakes here every year, part of the natural cycle." "Several hundred earthquakes per year?" Kex asked weakly. "Most are too small to feel. The big one we just experienced was maybe a 3.5 on the Richter scale. Nothing to worry about unless you're from a tectonically stable world. That afternoon, the earthquake triggered a small landslide on one of the hiking trails. Several human tourists were trapped under rocks and debris. The aliens expected chaos and panic. Instead, they witnessed something that would haunt their dreams for years to come. The human response was immediate and coordinated. Park rangers, tourists, and even children organized rescue efforts with military precision. They worked together to move tons of rock and debris, using improvised tools and techniques that seemed impossible for beings without specialized equipment. 12-year-old Alex Carter found himself trapped under a boulder that would have required heavy machinery to move on most worlds. Instead of panicking, he calmly assessed his situation and began directing his own rescue. "I can't feel my left leg," he called out to his rescuers. "But I can move my toes, so probably no spinal damage. The rock is pressing on my thigh, not my chest, so I can breathe fine." The aliens watched in amazement as this human child provided medical assessment and rescue coordination while trapped under crushing weight. His composure was more professional than most adult emergency responders in galactic civilization. Working together, the human rescuers moved the boulder using leverage, coordination, and determination that defied physics. Alex was extracted with only minor injuries, and within an hour he was walking around thanking his rescuers. "Happens more often than you'd think," explained Sarah Mitchell, one of the park medics. "People come here from all over the world and not everyone understands mountain safety. We train for this kind of thing." That evening, as they sat around a campfire listening to Tom tell stories about previous park emergencies, the aliens finally understood the truth about humanity. "You don't just survive on a death world," Morlin said quietly. "You've made yourselves at home in conditions that would be uninhabitable by galactic standards." Tom smiled. "Earth is home. Sure, it tries to kill us regularly, but that's what makes life interesting. Every day is an adventure when you live on a planet that's actively trying to end you." The aliens spent their final night writing reports for the Galactic Educational Consortium. Their recommendations were unanimous. Earth should be reclassified from Deathworld, inhabited by adaptable species, to Deathworld, inhabited by apex predator species. Zefka's report concluded, "Humans do not merely survive their environment. They have been forged by it into something unprecedented in galactic civilization. They are not just another member species. They are the most formidable survivors the universe has ever produced." As they prepared to leave Earth, the aliens realized they were returning home with knowledge that would change everything. Humanity was preparing to spread throughout the galaxy, and when they did, they wouldn't be bringing just their technology and culture. They would be bringing their fundamental nature as beings who had spent millions of years learning to thrive in conditions that would destroy most other forms of life. They had been shaped by a world that regularly attempted genocide through weather, geology, biology, and physics. The final scene that would stay with the aliens forever was Alex Carter, fully recovered from his injuries, teaching his 6-year-old sister how to start a fire without matches. The casual way he passed on survival skills that would make her more capable than most adult aliens demonstrated the endless cycle of human adaptation. "Remember," Alex told his sister patiently, "fire can save your life, but it can also kill you. Respect it, but don't fear it." As their transport ship pulled away from Earth, the aliens looked back at the blue and green world with new understanding. It wasn't just a planet. It was a forge that had spent eons creating the most terrifying species in the galaxy. Not because humans were evil, but because they were absolutely, utterly unstoppable.